Thank you, Margaret. Appreciated. I'm going to move on because I've got Jon-Christopher Bua waiting to talk to me. Thank you very much for your call, Margaret. 034... In fact, I don't know why I'm reading that number. Let's speak now with Jon-Christopher Bua, who is the White House correspondent for Real Political News. Thank you for joining us. How are you, Jon-Christopher?
Well, I'm as good as you are. I mean, this weather here is miserable, and I understand from your producer that your weather is, as you would say, pants as well.
Yes.
So, we're in sympathy with you.
Well, the US is superior in many ways in terms of the sheer size of the country. We can beat you on weather, though, because we love moaning about it, and it has honestly not stopped raining since the start of the year.
Oh, it's dreadful. But what's given me enormous joy is looking at this photograph of Ed Miliband and Gavin Newsom signing a document in London regarding the UK deal with the state of California in terms of green energy.
Yes, well, I wanted to ask you about that because speaking of sort of politics, when it rains, it pours and all of that, and Donald Trump really out of the news, we've done this deal with California, we being the UK, and Donald Trump has said, well, you shouldn't do a deal with this loser, Gavin Newsom, the governor. Tell us more.
Well, first of all, if I can say it on air, he doesn't call him Newsom, he calls him New SCUM.
Ah, right, new scum.
Yes, you said it. I didn't. Okay,
yes,
fine.
I know. I just to join the dots.
Now I know the parameters. Yes, he hates him. Because, first of all, years ago, when I was on with Sky News, I interviewed Newsom from a rally for Obama, and with me was, believe it or not, Adam Bolton, and he was absolutely delightful, very sharp, very intelligent, and charming, and not bad for the eyes, as you would imagine. And Donald Trump despises all of that
because he's young and good looking.
With him.
Right.
Yes, and then he made a deal with your environmental guy, Ed Miliband, to do some green energy deals. And the fact is that in California, we're the fourth largest economy in the world, and it's the biggest state. If California puts in a clean air requirement, everyone must abide by them, and I think that's really got Trump, who's drill baby drill is all he talks about, is oil and drilling for gas and oil, and he hates windmills, he hates China, he hates anything that's environmentally advanced, and he's a natural enemy for Newsom. So for Gavin to go over there and sit with Ed Miliband, who I met, lovely guy, it drove him absolutely crazy. So it's quite a story.
Well, I was going to say that. I mean, we know that he hates wind farms. He's called them stupid before, and clearly not in favour of us doing deals. Donald Trump seems to be, if there's a deal done and he's not involved, that irks him slightly.
Well, Trump just this week has rolled back all the major federal clean air regulations through the environmental protection. And I think it's devastating what he's doing. And he's got all his cronies and all his lackeys in positions in his cabinet. And he's really going we're going to go from rags to riches here. And we'll be doing it with stinking up the world. And I think it's awful. I think it's terrible. But I think you and I and you've got a good bunch of folks over there in government, and we are not. America is not Donald J. Trump. We care about Denmark. I've been there. It's wonderful. We care about Greenland. I've been there. It's wonderful. And the Swedes and the Norwegians and the Brits especially. We even like the Welsh. We love the Welsh. So it's what can I tell you?
You mentioned From Rags to Riches. That is a song that we associate with Goodfellas, that famous sort of mob masterpiece film. Yeah. Speaking of another famous mob masterpiece, The Godfather, very sad news that the actor Robert Duvall has died at the age of 95. Now, I know that you mingle with the good and the great of Washington, but also America, Jon-Christopher Bua. Your memories of Robert Duvall?
Well, first of all, I was before I was a famed pundit. I was an actor and a director and a producer off Broadway and in New York.
I never knew that.
And I know where Robert Duvall went to study. He went to the neighborhood playhouse where my acting teacher taught. He was friends with Dustin Hoffman. He was friends with all of that generation of actor who was, unfortunately, many of them are leaving us. And he was a phenomenal man. And I'll never forget the first movie I saw him in. First of all, he's a relative of Robert E. Lee, who was the head of the Confederacy. He was the president of the United States of the Confederacy. And you remember all the Appomattox Courthouse and the Civil War. And he's a relative of his. And he's a horseman. I lived not far from here in Virginia, rural Virginia, where he had his own horse ranch. And he was quite an athlete. But I will get on to all those questions about Duvall, who was a splendid man, 95 years old, and a brilliant 6-decade career. And the other thing that I love about him is that he was a New Yorker. He worked in so many films, but the first film he was in was one of the first books I've ever read, and you can read it. It's called To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. It is a most tender book, and it's the most beautiful movie with Atticus Finch, who is the lawyer in the movie who saves a black man from being hung, literally hung, and it's played by Gregory Peck. And Robert Duvall was in that movie, and the character's name was Boo Radley, and he lived next door to Atticus and his son Jem and his daughter Scout. And Boo Radley saved these two little kids on Halloween from getting killed by some gruesome man in the neighborhood. And he loved the little girl. He loved the two boys. And Gregory Peck was very much in his debt. And that was the first time I've ever seen Robert Duvall. And he's done so many films. And you mentioned The Godfather, and you mentioned Apocalypse Now, and so many wonderful Tender Mercies. And he was a hell of a nice guy. I've met him. I know people who know him well. I don't. And he's a superb actor. We lose our great people, and that's what happens. We move on, and hopefully his spirit is within all of us, and we'll learn from him. And we should all watch his films and understand that he really cared about the acting, and he worked with the best, with Brando, etc. And he was a wonderful actor. And you'll remember the famous line, "The smell of napalm in the morning,
Yes.
it smells like victory."
Lastly, before I let you go, Jon-Christopher Bua, we are discussing this hour as well comments made by a former US president about aliens. Everyone in America seems obsessed with aliens. Why has this ignited such a debate?
Well, I saw that Barack Obama thing, and he was, Barack is a hell of a nice guy, and he's out there talking about, look, the universe is. The more we learn about how big it is, and the more we go by travel in these capsules and get close to the moon and Mars and God knows Pluto, we realize that the universe is enormous. And are there aliens?
Well, that's the question. Thank you. We'll have to answer it another time. Jon-Christopher Bua is White House correspondent for Real Political News. That's it from me. Thank you for all of your calls and messages. I'm going to be back next Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 3 until 6 in the afternoon. If you missed any of today's show, you can listen back on the free Global Player app or the LBC app, where you